Donald Trump beating his rivals for now, but can he beat a Democrat in November? The latest Fox News poll shows the GOP frontrunner is losing to Hillary Clinton in a potential presidential matchup. But get this, John Kasich and Ted Cruz both coming out on top. Reaction from former GOP presidential candidate Herman Cain. All right, Herman, what do you make of these polls that show Kasich doing so well in a general election, even Cruz, while they have Donald Trump losing sometimes really badly to Hillary?
Well, let's remember that polls represent a trend based upon the spoon-fed perception that people have gotten from various sources of media. So that's number one. And secondly, when Donald Trump has been leading so much, he's been attacked so much, so there are so many sound bites out there negatively attacking him. That helps to explain the big differential. Now, the good news is a poll also tells you what you need to do to change the perception. And now that the field of Republican candidates has been whittled down to essentially a three-man race for now, and when it becomes one-on-one, then I believe that whoever the nominee is can work on closing that gap, whoever it is, between Hillary and the Republican nominee. So it's a trend, but reality, perception is reality for the time being.
What's the source of the trend? In other words, what's the main reason? I know there's a lot of Trump being the front runner, $100 million in negative ads against him, those kind of things we know start to compound a little bit. But what are the specific issues that has Hillary beating him? Where does he have to close that gap?
He has been portrayed as being a racist, anti-black. No, he's not. A statement that he made was taken out of context, and they start putting it out there that he was a racist. They start putting it out there that he's a bigot because of the statement he made about the wall. That simply is not true. Here's the other thing, Charles. Hardly is the entire speech that's given by any of the candidates ever reflected in some of the news reports. And we get hyperbole from some of the news reports. Here's an example. I saw an article whose headline today was Cruz beating Trump in Wisconsin, which, as you know, is one of the next states coming up for their primary. Well, when you read the article, which I did, Cruz has a 1-point lead over Trump in Wisconsin in that particular poll. That's not a lead, but that's what people will believe because they're trying to get people to believe that Trump is losing his momentum when in fact he is not. So this is what I mean by spoon-fed, because the headlines, the sound bites that are put out there, they shape that perception, and because he's been so controversial, the perception has been shaped for now. But I happen to believe that that same poll tells him and his people what they need to do in order to close that gap.
On the controversial side, the most recent stuff is this going back and forth with him and Ted Cruz, the super PAC that wants Ted Cruz to win. You know, some would argue did their first salvo, but overnight Donald Trump retweeted something that a lot of people found offensive. You know, it doesn't help either candidate, but certainly in a general election it would hurt both of them, particularly going against Hillary Clinton, a woman, wouldn't it?
I think it would, but I don't think that that's going to be the tack. I don't know for sure that Donald Trump is going to take. Look, Hillary Clinton has so many negatives that Mickey Mouse could put together an effective campaign if they were to put together the right messages. So I'm not concerned right now that Donald Trump has that differential in the polls relative to Hillary Clinton. We have a long way to go. Remember, back in 1980, Ronald Reagan trailed Jimmy Carter by over 20 points at one time. But by election time, he had closed that gap. So I think it's a trend, but it should also indicate what they need to do in order to make sure that that trend does not persist.
Herman, how did he close that gap? And was he fortunate enough that a lot of things happened, like the Iran hostage crisis and other things, the ineptitude of a Jimmy Carter just certainly coming up to catch him, or was there something specific that Ronald Reagan did to shift the tide?
I think it was a combination of all of the things that you mentioned back in 1980 when Ronald Reagan was running. And here is the most important thing, I think. Reagan projected strong leadership. I think that's what we're seeing today, Charles. And Reagan was able to capture that and capture that sense of pride for the American people, and that's what they responded to. That's why you had Reagan Democrats, you had independents, you had Republicans. He captured the pride of America along with projecting strong leadership. Now, I've said on your show before, that's exactly what I think Donald Trump is tapping into.
There's no doubt.
Many of his supporters, they aren't following this social media stuff. They out working. They got a job, hopefully. So they're not following all of that stuff.
But
they're looking at...
To your point, I'm sorry, Herman, but to your point, America really needs that Morning in America feeling again. And I appreciate you coming on, man. Every time. You're great. Appreciate it.
Happy to do it, Charles. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. See you.